Deep inside the forests of Tanzania, where ancient trees rise above the ground and the sounds of the wild continue day and night, one of the most surprising discoveries in animal research was about to unfold. It was not a battle between humans. There were no weapons, no armies, and no borders drawn on maps. Yet this conflict contained something many people believed belonged only to us: strategy, alliances, territory, and organized violence. For centuries, humans believed that war was a uniquely human behavior. We believed that only our species could create enemies, form alliances, plan attacks, and fight for power. But in Gombe National Park, scientists discovered a much more complicated truth. Chimpanzees, animals that share almost 98% of our DNA, were showing behaviors that seemed surprisingly familiar. They could build friendships, protect their families, teach their young, and show emotions. They remembered individuals and formed strong social bonds. But they could also compete, create rival groups, attack enemies, and fight for control of their territory. This was the story of the Gombe Chimpanzee War, a conflict that changed how scientists viewed our closest living relatives. The story began in 1960, when Jane Goodall arrived near Lake Tanganyika in Tanzania to study wild chimpanzees. At that time, very little was known about these animals. Many scientists believed humans were unique because of our intelligence, emotions, and ability to create tools. But Jane Goodall changed that understanding forever. At first, the chimpanzees avoided her. They watched from the trees and disappeared whenever she came closer. To them, Jane was a strange creature entering their world, a hairless animal walking on two legs, carrying notebooks, and silently observing their lives. With patience, Jane slowly gained their trust. She allowed the chimpanzees to accept her presence naturally and began documenting behaviors that had never been recorded before. Her discoveries shocked the scientific world. Chimpanzees were using tools. They carefully prepared pieces of grass and used them to collect termites from underground nests. This proved that humans were not the only creatures capable of problem-solving and tool use. But Jane discovered something even deeper. Chimpanzees were individuals with unique personalities. Some were peaceful and gentle, while others were confident and aggressive. They formed friendships, created rivalries, and developed complex relationships. Chimpanzees such as David Greybeard and Flo showed researchers that these animals had emotional connections and social lives far more advanced than previously imagined. However, beneath the peaceful moments of grooming and family interaction was another side of chimpanzee society: competition. Chimpanzee communities have complicated social structures. Male chimpanzees compete for higher status because rank can influence access to food, protection, and reproduction. But strength alone is not enough. Intelligence and alliances are equally important. Males create partnerships, support each other, and use social relationships to increase their influence. Their world contains friendships, rivalries, negotiations, and changing alliances. By the early 1970s, researchers noticed a major change at Gombe. The large chimpanzee community began to divide. One group moved toward the southern part of the forest, while another remained in the north. The northern group became known as the Kasakala community, and the southern group became known as the Kahama community. At first, the separation appeared normal, but slowly, the relationship between the two groups changed. They were no longer simply living apart. They were becoming rivals. In January 1974, researchers witnessed a moment that would change animal behavior studies forever. A group of Kasakela males entered Kahama territory and found a lone male named Godi. The group surrounded him and attacked together. It was not a simple fight between two individuals. It was a coordinated attack by one group against another. Godi survived, but he was badly injured. This event marked the beginning of a conflict that would continue for years and reveal a darker, more complex side of chimpanzee society. After the attack on Godi in 1974, the forests of Gombe entered a new and dangerous chapter. What researchers first believed might have been an isolated incident soon became a pattern. The Kasakela chimpanzees continued moving into Kahama territory, searching for members of the rival group. They traveled together, watched their surroundings carefully, and acted as a coordinated unit. The conflict was not a sudden explosion of violence. It was a slow struggle for power and territory that developed over time. The chimpanzees were not fighting every day. Most of their lives were still peaceful, filled with searching for food, caring for young, grooming each other, and resting beneath the trees. But whenever members of the two groups encountered each other, the danger became clear. One by one, the Kahama chimpanzees disappeared. Some were killed during attacks, while others vanished from the forest. The smaller Kahama community became weaker with every loss, while the Kasakela group expanded its control over the area. Eventually, the Kahama community was destroyed completely. The events at Gombe changed science forever. Researchers realized that chimpanzees were capable of organized aggression between groups. They were not simply reacting with anger in the moment. Their actions were connected to territory, social relationships, and survival. This discovery created a major debate among scientists. Some researchers believe chimpanzee warfare revealed ancient roots of human conflict. Others argued that the specific conditions at Gombe, including competition for land and resources, increased the chances of conflict. But one fact became impossible to ignore. Humans were not the only species capable of organized group violence. However, chimpanzees are not defined only by their darker behaviors. Their lives are also filled with compassion, cooperation, and emotional connections. Researchers have observed chimpanzees comforting injured companions, caring for orphaned young, and showing signs of grief after losing members of their community. Mothers create powerful bonds with their children, and friendships between individuals can last for many years. A chimpanzee can spend one moment defending its group and another moment peacefully grooming a close companion beneath the trees. This contrast is what makes chimpanzees so fascinating. They are not simply aggressive creatures. They are complex beings living in a world where cooperation and competition exist side by side. The Gombe Chimpanzee War also changed how scientists viewed human evolution. For a long time, war was considered a purely human invention created by culture, language, and civilization. But chimpanzee behavior suggested that some foundations of competition between groups may have much deeper evolutionary roots. Long before humans built cities, created nations, or developed advanced weapons, our ancestors lived in social groups where cooperation was necessary for survival and competition was always present. Chimpanzees do not create governments, write laws, or fight over ideas like humans do. Their conflicts are different from human wars. Yet the similarities remain fascinating. Both species depend on relationships, understand the importance of alliances, protect their communities, and compete with rivals. The forests of Gombe became a living window into the past. Instead of studying only fossils and ancient remains, scientists could observe the behavior of a species connected to our own evolutionary history. Decades after Jane Goodall's first observations, Gombe National Park remains one of the most important places in the world for studying wild chimpanzees. The individuals she studied are no longer alive, but their stories continue influencing science and changing the way humans understand nature. The greatest lesson of the Chimpanzee Wars is not simply that animals can be violent. The deeper lesson is that intelligence creates complexity. The ability to think, remember, and understand relationships can create friendship and cooperation, but it can also create competition and conflict. Chimpanzees remind us that nature is not divided into simple categories of good and bad, peaceful and violent. Every species is shaped by its environment, its challenges, and its need to survive. The story of Gombe is ultimately a story about connection. When humans look at chimpanzees, we are not looking at a completely separate world. We are seeing a reflection of our own evolutionary past. Deep beneath the trees of Tanzania, our closest relatives continue to reveal a powerful truth. The story of humanity did not begin alone. It began in a shared world, alongside creatures that learned, adapted, cooperated, and survived with us. And the more we understand chimpanzees, the more we discover about ourselves.